Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, continuing with our 2022 season previews as we take a look at the Wisconsin Badgers, a team that has just been as consistent as any other team in the country. Paul Chryst coming into his 8th year, 7 straight winning seasons, 7 straight seasons inside the AP Top 25. That is a hard thing to do, and Paul Chryst has done it, and that's why we had him as a top 10 coach in our coaching rankings that we did a couple months ago. We are Paul Chryst guys. Last year, it felt like, Dale, I think you can agree with this. It felt like there's a little meat left on the bone for this Wisconsin Badgers team going into the last week against Minnesota. Dale, we were rooting against Wisconsin that last week because as Michigan fans, we did not want a piece of that.
You don't want to play Wisconsin when they have Braelon Allen in the backfield. That's just been the mold. If Wisconsin has a hammer at running back, they're very hard to play with.
Yeah, they're hard with how good of defense they play. They're very hard. All right, but before we get into it, we just wanted to say thank you guys. Try to do this every show for all the support you guys have shown the channel. It's been a blast talking ball with you guys in the comments section. Over 1,000 subscribers. The support has been sick. If you guys do like the content, consider subscribing. Still, let's start talking about a little 2022 season preview for the Badgers. I think it starts with the quarterback position. Dill, you watched a lot of Wisconsin football. Tell me a little bit about Graham Mertz and what does he need to do to take this step? He's coming into his 3rd year. He's a top 75 recruit in the country in 2019. How are we gonna get better here?
You know, I actually think if you gave Braelon Allen to Graham Mertz all season, you would have put together a decent year. Because honestly, his struggles primarily came in the first 5 or so games, where it seemed like he was turning the ball over nonstop, was fumbling. And I think part of that simply was they weren't running the ball wildly effectively until Braelon Allen came along. So I actually think if Graham Mertz takes a step, and he certainly has to because he's not been good enough, not living up to the hype he had coming in as a monster recruit for Wisconsin. But if he can take a step and be kind of what he was at the end of last year, pairing up with Braelon Allen, he's going to be there. That's going to make a very solid offense for Wisconsin.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. The best friend for a quarterback is a strong run game. In Wisconsin, down the stretch, when Braelon Allen was the lion's share, getting the lion's share of the work, I mean, he's just a different level. He's a top 5 back in our power rankings. One of the best backs in the country. I'm sure the Wisconsin fans know he was only 17 years old when he was doing his thing in the fall. He's only going to be 18 next year. He's special. He's rare. I kind of put him in the ilk. I think he can be in that ilk of the JT, Monte Ball, Melvin Gordon, like that special group of running backs.
I mean, he's got the JT feel of just
he does.
And once he gets going, it looks like he cuts right through guys who try to arm tackle him, doesn't slow down, and makes big plays pretty consistently. So,
yeah.
He's just incredible.
So what I think we're pretty set on the run game and how that helps Graham Mertz. Having a strong run game will help Graham Mertz, and Braelon Allen will give that to the Wisconsin Badgers. The one big question mark is that wide receiver position. They lose their guy like Jake Ferguson, who was just a phenomenal tight end for years at Wisconsin.
And they lose their most consistent wideout in Pryor. So they're down most of the production they had at throwing the ball last year.
And when you look at the explosive rankings for offense, they were ranked in the bottom. They were 82 in the country, so bottom half of the country, and all those explosive plays came on the run. Like they don't hit explosive plays through the air. And there's got to be a guy. There's not really a guy that is standing out to me because we didn't really see many of those tiered like wide receiver 2 or the 2 deep wide receiver groups. But one of those guys needs to step up and kind of become a playmaker for Wisconsin. When Wisconsin's offense is humming, not only are they running the ball, but they do have a receiver they can go out on the perimeter and get some chunk plays. And they just didn't seem to have that last year. And that's probably the big question mark coming.
I mean, my thing, they don't need to hit big plays, but they need to be able to get a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 7 with some more consistency because they just weren't doing that last year. Like, well, Wisconsin, you know what they want to do. They want to stay on schedule. They want to run the ball. They're going to get their explosive plays with Braelon Allen because he's a Heisman-level player. They just need to have guys who will give them a 3rd down, which is kind of what Jake Ferguson was last year, frankly, which is probably my biggest concern. I will say they do have Hayden Rucci coming, and he was a very – His dad played, I think, in the NFL. His brother is a really good offensive lineman for them, so an athletic family. I think he's a guy who maybe needs to fill the void of what Jake Ferguson left, because they're going to need, again, they just need some guys to convert. They need to convert a third down here and there and keep the ball in their hands.
On the offensive line, they lose a couple guys, but they will be solid. That you look through Wisconsin's recruiting class, and all their top recruits are offensive linemen. Whether Jack Nelson is a guy that was really popping out on the film for UD, he's going to be at left tackle.
Jack Nelson feels like possibly at first. He was playing out of position a little bit at guard, but he looked tough. I mean, he was moving D tackles around at Penn State and some of the other games. But you can see when they throw screens or let him get moving, he's a good athlete. So I kind of want to see what he can do at left tackle, because I think it's nice to get Tyler Beach back inside where he probably belongs. He wasn't a good enough pass protector when you watched the Michigan game or against Arnold Avocado. He was getting beat pretty good, but a powerful Wisconsin prototype. So to get him in guard, get your athlete outside, I'm kind of excited for that.
And then at right tackle, you got a guy like Logan Brown, top 20 recruit in the country. He's going to be solid. And then you got a guy like Nolan Rucci, who is probably going to work his way somewhere on that offensive line. Death taxes and Wisconsin just having a good offensive line. They seem to do it pretty consistently. On the defensive side of the ball, this is when I was like doing the season preview, this team is eerily similar to Minnesota, where they had an elite defense, a quietly elite defense. I mean, first nationally in points per game, fourth nationally in yards per game. I mean, this defense was phenomenal under Jim Leonard. Question mark is they lose 8 of their starters, and most of those guys were really, really good football players. So let's start up front, and I'm going to throw out a name that I think he's going to have a massive season. That's Nick Herbig. Kid from Hawaii. I feel like he's playing the position I kind of wish Leo Chenal would play a little bit. Leo Chenal was a sick linebacker, but it seemed like he would have really benefited from like getting after the passer a little bit more on the edge, because the power that dude had in his hands and how explosive he was, I think would have served him really well on the outside. But Nick Herbig, I think, can take a massive step up, and he's one of my guys that I'm kind of keeping an eye on as an All-American level dude. Like that, I think
he's by far the best returning player, I would say, on this defense. And they're getting back two of the guys inside, and Keanu Benton and Isaiah Mullins.
Yep.
Kind of your big battleship prototype.
Yes.
I keep saying that word, which is a little weird. But like kind of your classic Wisconsin D tackles who, not dynamic players, aren't going to rush the pass rusher at a high level. But they're hard to run on. Michigan saw they were hard to run on. Penn State saw they were hard to run on. Everybody did. So
first in the country
nice,
in rushing yards allowed per game, and that doesn't surprise you when you look at that front seven. Linebackers is where you have the most question mark. Losing a guy like Leo Chenal, like Jack Sanborn, who I swear Jack Sanborn played for like 17 years at Wisconsin.
But that was just a great combo for a long time.
We're just so productive. They were great linebackers. They're always around the football, and you got to replace them with guys, because Jack Sanborn and because Leo Chenal played pretty much every game. There's not a lot of guys who have that much playing experience stepping up. Now, here's my take on the Wisconsin defense: is it's less reliant on stud players and much more reliant on the scheme that Jim Leonard brings. Jim Leonard is one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinator in the country. And if those linebackers come in and just do their job, the stats will come, the good play will come. I don't think this Wisconsin defense was ever relying on a Leo Chenal or Jack Sanborn. They were just guys who did their job.
Not to mention, they've coached great linebackers every year. It seems like for the whole time Paul Chryst has been there. Having guys who are kind of borderline All-American players, Zach Bond, TJ Watt, Connolly, the two last year, like they're always producing great linebacking players. So that's just not it's for whatever reason, and you're probably right. It has something to do with scheme in the way those defensive coaches develop talent on that team. But they always seem to be ready, no matter how many guys they lose, no matter how many NFL players leave, they're always ready to rock and roll.
And then at the secondary spot, you still lose a ton of guys. Caesar Williams, Fayon Hicks, two guys who are very, very good in the back end. They go to the portal here. They get a safety from Utah. Jay Shaw coming over from UCLA. He's a stud. He was a 4-star prospect in the transfer portal. Justin Clark, Toledo. He was an all-MAC guy. And then you get Cedric Dort from Kentucky, SEC football level caliber player. That's how they attacked that position. They must have felt like they weren't deep enough in the secondary because they went after the secondary.
I mean, they lost all 4 of the productive guys in both safeties and the corners. So, yeah, it makes sense. Probably they had to come after the portal.
Well, the thing weird is they also lost their linebackers, but they must feel confident in the young Bucks linebackers they have. Yeah. But in the secondary, they said, hey, this is a position where we got to attack, and they went out and did it and got 3 quality guys who I expect all to contribute, especially a guy like Jay Shaw. The defense, my season outlook is the offense needs to take a step forward. They have the players to do it. Graham Mertz is coming into his 3rd year in the scheme. Braelon Allen is a Heisman-level running back, as you noted. They'll have a good offensive line. That offense needs to be better. The defense probably takes a step back. It's hard to see them being a top 3 defense like they were last year, just because how much talent they're losing. But Jim Leonard's going to have top 25 defense. It don't matter.
That's the thing is Jim Leonard always has top defenses.
You could trot out us on defense at Wisconsin, and I'm a brutal
coach to an All-American.
They just get it done on defense. Let's take a look at their schedule real quick. I think it lines up pretty good. I was taking a look at it before we went live here. You open up with Illinois State and Washington State, New Mexico State, all at home. Those games are 2 layups in New Mexico State and Illinois State. Washington State might be good. We'll see what Cameron Ward has down there at Washington State. But
as you said, that's a grind to face Jimmy Leonard that early in the season. So
yes, and at home.
You know he's going to put the pressure on you. That's one thing you can be certain.
And my big goal is for Wisconsin is if you can take care of business, get to 3-0 heading into Columbus against Ohio State. That game's going to be electric if Wisconsin does what they need to do. And the one thing we saw Ohio State struggle with is stopping the run. Now they're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, and we were talking about the other day. This scheme that Ohio State's going to need to run on defense this year is going to look so much different. Jim Knowles asked a lot of his players, and getting Ohio State early, we saw Michigan with the growing pains on defense. Ohio State will no doubt have growing pains, and this could be a gettable game. And then you take on Illinois at home, Northwestern at home, really kind of lay up Big Ten West teams. Not lay up. I think Illinois will be a decent team. Northwestern's going to suck. And then you start getting into kind of the meteor schedule where you go on the road to Michigan State. You play Purdue. Maryland's a very good team in the Big Ten East. Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota to kind of finish out the season.
That's a thrilling end.
That's what's going to matter. And those are the 3 teams that you're probably, and Purdue, that you're competing with in the Big Ten West. If you want to get to a Big Ten championship game, you're going to have to probably take 3 out of 4 of those games. Wisconsin certainly can do it. I think it's in Graham Mertz's hands now.
All I know is this is what Wisconsin, this is how they need to play. That's why I think they looked so poor in the beginning of last year, is they just didn't have their stallion at running back. I even think, like, I don't know, Graham Mertz seemed to, again, it just seemed like the game picked up by the end of the year. And, yeah, if he can roll that in and be just not turn the ball over so much, I think they're in really good shape because he can move.
And to be fair, his turnovers were drastic. He had he had a 1 touchdown to 6 interception ratio after the first 3 games. And he finished at 10 and 11. Like, he kind of started to take care of the football a little bit better down the stretch. Obviously, with another year of experience, he's still a young dude. I mean, he came in and lit it up during the COVID year, that first game against Illinois, and people thought he was like the savior of Wisconsin football. Not that Wisconsin needed a savior, but he's still a young kid. He's developing, and if he takes a step up, this Wisconsin team is right up there in the Big Ten West, and that's no doubt about it. That'll do it for our Wisconsin 2022 football preview. We appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.